Hello guys, I will be showing you guys how to rebuild this Garret turbo off a 2006 Powerstroke. First things first is you're going to want to remove this bolt off of the VGT solenoid, and that's going to be a 12-point socket, and it'll be a 5/16. Make sure to lubricate the bolt well because it's probably hasn't been taken off and it will be pretty hard to get off. Alright, once you got the VGT solenoid out, next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to back this bolt off all the way out through this top part. That's going to be a 7/16. Then you're going to want to move this clamp over to the right side so that you can see this seam right here, because we're going to have to split the turbo at that point. I would use some sort of lubrication if you have it, like WD-40. Now if the clamp is all the way on the right side, we're going to have to lift the turbo up slightly, and we're going to have to kind of hammer it on the side here. After holding the turbo slightly off the table here, I was holding it up in the air by this part and hitting along the edge of this part right here. I was just using a rubber dead blow hammer. Not too heavy one, and it slid right out. Next thing we're going to do is take off this unison ring, and then we'll take out these VGT vanes. If your unison ring is anything like mine, it's probably stuck and you can't get it up. So I would use this little flathead screwdriver like this and just slightly pry along the edges in a circular motion, and it should slide right out. Now that I got the unison ring out, you can see how sooted up it is around the outside. And that can cause a P0299 code for a turbo underboost. Next step, I'm going to remove those VGT vanes right here, and I'm going to put them in the same order that I took them out of, so I know where they went. Now I got all 9 of those VGT vanes out of the way. Next step is to remove this turbine right here. First thing I'm going to do before I remove that turbine is I'm going to use this 5/16 socket and remove all these bolts around the outside. Now once you remove all 6 of those bolts, you should be able to knock the front cover of the turbo just like that. I removed the front cover off again with my rubber dead blow hammer. Now you got the whole opening up. And also, since you got that back off of the turbo, you can remove this bracket if you want. It's to remove the turbine nut right here, which will be a 14mm. I did end up getting this turbine wheel off, and this nut right there is a 14mm, and I put a pair of vice grips on that end right there. And if you have a second pair of hands like I did, luckily my father came out and helped me because it is pretty tight, so he was holding on there with vice grips while I was loosening this. And it is reverse thread. That is very critical, and sometimes people do put Loctite on there, so you might need a little bit of heat. Luckily I got mine off without it. To get the exhaust side turbine out, all you're going to want to do is hit it very lightly against that end of it right here. It comes out very easily. Go right through the hole, pop out the other side. And then next, you're going to want to split this housing. And that is going to be the same 5/16 12-point we've been using the whole time. Now that you got those 4 bolts off, this back cover will fall straight off of that with no problem. And your bearing should fall off as well. Mine just slid off just like that. So watch out for that. Now I will be taking this part out, these 3 bolts, with a T20. Now that you got those 3 screws out of that plate, there's nothing really here to do besides clean this, because as you can see, it is very, very sooted up. And then to get these bearings out of this thing, all you're gonna do is slide this main one up, and this one you should just be able to pull straight out. Just like that. Alright, the next step is you're going to want to take this snap ring out from there, and then this snap ring out from in there. And then you're going to want to undo this right here. Once we got that snap ring out from in here, we're going to pull this part out. I'm just going to use a pair of vice grips and just pull straight out. Then once you got this plug out, you're going to want to try to find a bolt that fits good in this hole, because this thing is pretty tough. Then you're just going to want to yank on it. I already got it out, but that's all you're going to do, and it'll come right out. It's pretty tough because it has a pretty big O-ring around there. Also, once you get that cap off, this giant plunger piece will come out of that hole that it came out of. And this thing will have to be timed later with these gears along with this when we put it back together. Because if you look in the drain hole thing, if you flip it up, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but there is like little gears and teeth on there. You see those gears? Those will line up with the slots on the plunger. Now the turbo is fully disassembled, I'm going to grab a wire brush and clean all this soot out of all these spots. So now you can see I wire brush all that stuff off, including the unison ring, the VGT vanes, and my compressor side turbine, because the main reason I am rebuilding this is because my turbo was leaking oil. So I will be reusing that again. And make sure to wipe all this stuff down. And if you do have any anti-seize, you can put it around here, and that will prevent this stuff from getting all corroded and sticking. But I do not have any, so I will not be putting any on. Now, since we got the turbo all apart, we're gonna start the rebuild process. I'm personally gonna be using the KC Turbo Extreme Rebuild Kit along with the 10-blade turbine. And first step is to open the package up. Now that the package is open, the first step we're gonna do is grab this small O-ring, the smallest out of the bunch. It's actually about the same size as another one. This one's just skinnier than the other one. This is the other one that I am talking about. As you can see, they're about the same size, it's just a lot bigger. And this O-ring will be going right in here. Let it focus. It's gonna go right in here. And I just have a pair of tweezers, so I'm gonna take the old O-ring out. You might be able to see it in there. Now that I got the old O-ring out on my right side here, I'm gonna install the new one. And I do have some Lucas Oil assembly lube I will be putting on the O-rings. Okay, now I got the new O-ring in its spot. Hopefully you guys can see it. I'm gonna try to put a little air on the screen for you guys. And then next step, we're gonna have to put this plunger back in. And like I said, it is gonna have to be timed kind of along with the gear in here. And I'll show you guys how to do that in just a second. All right, before we're gonna put this VGT piston inside of here and time it up. All right guys, we're gonna put this first gear notch right there. Then you're gonna have the VGT piston, and I would put some oil on there. Then have the ridges for the gears pointing upward. Now that we got the piston, you can see this guy moves with ease, no problem. And you can see inside here, the piston is moving. And then it stops right by that wear mark and it goes back in as it should, just like so. And now we're on to the next step. We can put the cap we took off earlier, we can put that guy straight back into the spot. I'm gonna grab my rubber dead blow hammer over here. I got my rubber dead blow. I'm just gonna give it some nice little taps until it's seated all the way. Now it's seated all the way. It's good, not going anywhere. The next step is we're gonna put the cap back onto here. But first we're gonna have to get a new O-ring. And the new O-ring is right here in the kit. And we gotta get our cap, which is right over here. Let's take that O-ring off. I'm gonna be using tweezers again since I do not have an O-ring pick. Now that we got this cap on, we're gonna go over to our cap. And we're gonna grab that big snap ring right there. After we hit this thing into place, KC Turbo sent a new snap ring, so I put that in as well. Now just make sure your snap ring is seated all the way. And as you can see now, just make sure everything works as it should. Just move this around, make sure everything is still working properly before we move too far. As you can see, mine is. Next step we're going to do is, you see this O-ring on the outside here. This is a square cut O-ring, and the kit is also one square cut O-ring right there for us. We're going to be using that one. Now as you can see, my new O-ring is installed I did use some assembly lube on that as well. The next step is we're going to be replacing this bearing. The KC kit did come with one. And as you can see, this outer ring right there, we're going to be replacing as well. And the kit did come with that for us. There's that. Then there's that. So we're going to put that around the outside. Now as you can see, I did put that around the outside there. The next step, we're going to be putting this 360 thrust bearing in. And it's going to go straight up like that with the arrow type things pointing towards upwards, because when it goes down like this little oil feed line right there is going to shoot oil up into here and disperse it around the edges. So this part will end up be facing like that. And then we're going to be putting this piece right on top, so it's going to be facing upwards like that, so it sits in that other half just like so. The next step is installing this main cover, but first we're going to have to take that giant O-ring along the outside. If you guys see that, we're going to have to take that one out. and then replace it with the new one we got from KC. Now that we got the O-ring along the outside put on, this arrow up here will be pointing towards the arrow feed line. So that's how you know if the top cover is seated properly and in the right position for you. And to bolt down the compressor housing, KC Turbo will also include 4 new bolts. Those will be torqued down to 12 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. Once you get those 4 bolts torqued down, I just wipe my inside of my housing off to get all my grease off of there. The next step will be installing your vanes in the unison ring onto here. Once you got the vanes in the unison ring back on the exhaust side turbo, I'm going to put this plate and the 3 screws back on. But before I do that, I'm going to wire brush this thing down to get it all clean, because you can see all that excess soot on there. Once you got this plate on, just get these bolts nice and snug in a star pattern, and that's good to go. And also, before you and I forget, I forgot to mention to put this plug back in. Now we got the new turbine shaft, and we're going to put this around the outside on right here where you can see my fingers pointing at inside that little indent. Once that is slid down to where it's supposed to be, I like to wipe down the shaft, and then we're going to get our bearings out of the kit they gave us, and it's going to go brass, steel, brass right down here, right down the shaft. And it should look something like that. And also, I'm going to oil mine with some assembly lube as well. Now that's all built, I'm going to stick it straight in the housing right here. You push it in all the way, make sure it is seated flush to the back. Just make sure everything spins all good. No hiccups, nothing in the way. As you can see, mine spins just fine. Next step is to put the compressor wheel on, and that is going to be a left-handed thread, so lefty-tighty, and it's going to be a 14 millimeter, and it's going to go to 10 foot-pounds. Also, a reminder when doing this, always have this point inside of the other one, because it won't work if this tries to go outside. They'll all get like jammed up. Now that you see the unison ring on, you should move easy now that it's all clean, no effort at all. And this little notch right here will line up with the little peg sticking out of here. The last O-ring, the last big O-ring is going to go around the perimeter right around there on the exhaust side of the turbo. When you're connecting the 2 housings together, make sure to put this on the compressor side, because once you put these together, you're going to have to take it off, or you can't put this thing on. Then slowly tap with a slight hammer around the edge and turn this thing every couple hits to make sure it is going in smooth, because you don't want to have to hear any grinding from the exhaust side turbine. As you can hear mine, it's all good, all nice and flush, because this is a very precise fit. Once you got the compressor side with the exhaust side, you're going to tighten it down with the 7/16. It's going to be 150 inch-pounds. The last step is to put this cover on. Make sure the arrow right there is in line with the oil right there. And then all 6 of these bolts will get torqued down to 12 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. Also, since KC Turbo sent me all new O-rings for my VGT solenoid, I will be replacing them as well. So now here's the VGT solenoid with all new O-rings. Next step is to install it back to where it came from. Thank you guys for watching. That's the end of the video. Here's the full newly rebuilt turbo with the KC 10 blade and the extreme rebuild kit. If you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you.